Well, hello and welcome back, everyone. It's Brenni Larson. I am here with Jodi Brunner, and we have an Australian on the line today. So get ready, because Master Jodi Brunner, she studied with Joseph Yu Feng Shui Research Center. She's based in Melbourne, Australia. She offers consultations in person and online, traditional Feng Shui workshops, entertaining seminars, professional training, and Feng Shui tours locally and internationally. She is currently the president of the Association of Feng Shui Consultants. She is the founder of the Feng Shui Network and is widely known in the Feng Shui community worldwide. There's a lot to tell you about Jodi, but you're going to find out more on this interview, and I want to jump right into it because it's called the Cosmic Trinity, making space for the three types of luck in your life. Now, San Chai is about the cosmic trinity of heaven, earth, and man, or you could say people. It's used in many ways in Feng Shui, and it's also used in a more general way to describe our three types of luck. So the heaven luck is about our destiny, the earth luck is about Feng Shui, and man luck is about our intentions and our attitude to life. So if we understand any of these types of luck, our lives will be richer and luckier. So let's explore this cosmic trinity in more detail and see how we can apply it in our own lives. First, I want to introduce you to Jodi. Hey, Jodi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
We got a little bit of a time difference between Minnesota and Melbourne, so it's night at one place and morning at the other. But we do what it takes to get you all the information, and I know everybody's going to love this interview. Are you ready to jump right in then?
Sure, why not?
Fantastic. Jodi, could you tell our listeners that may be new and just finding out about you on this summit a little bit about how did you end up in Feng Shui?
Okay, well, Brenni, I discovered Feng Shui in the early 90s, which led me on a quest to uncover the secrets of this mystical art and science. And I saw a course advertised in the paper. It was one of those free information nights. So I went along to the information night, and I found out that Feng Shui was a lot of things that I was very interested in, because it's a combination of so many different things. Because Feng Shui is a combination of architecture, interior design, philosophy, psychology, astrology, astronomy, mathematics, and a great deal of common sense as well. So because I had
hopefully that common sense is in there, right, Jodi?
Exactly, because I thought, well, I've got a little bit of common sense, so I'll keep going with this. And I decided to study here in Melbourne with a teacher here. His name's Kevin, and he set up a very good Feng Shui school here in Melbourne, and he was teaching many different subjects. So he was teaching things like, Feng Shui, of course, and then he was teaching Chinese astrology. He was teaching building biology. And, building biology is about the chemicals in the environment and the electromagnetic radiation and the electromagnetic fields that we're subjected to on a daily basis. So I learned those things, and then I also learned geomancy as well. So geomancy, from the Western perspective, is about using our intuition, using dowsing rods to find energies underneath the earth, or to find the flow of qi throughout a building. So I learned how to use a dowsing rod and walk around a property to be able to see where is the earth energies and to identify those locations. Or in fact, you can use it even to find water under the ground. And inside a house, you can use it to find the path of qi. So using a dowsing rod, I can walk through a house, and just a single dowsing rod, and if I follow the dowsing rod, it will tell me that the path, when people enter the house, how do they walk through the house? Where do they go once they've entered their front door? Which direction do they head in? So that was all really fascinating. So I learned so many different things during that first year. But I thought, I can't be an expert in everything, because that's physically impossible. And so Feng Shui is the thing that really caught my attention. So I decided to focus my studies on Feng Shui mostly. Although, we do have to especially keep in mind these days the effect of electromagnetic fields where we're sleeping in particular, and other types of earth energies. They may or may not affect us. You see, the thing about studying that type of thing is once you find something underneath the ground, the only way to test whether it's there is actually to dig. And I'm not going to dig big holes under the ground just to check and see if, to make sure that there's water there to see if I'm right. But you can use dowsing to find like pipes under the ground and things like that. And I know that that works. I've tested that out. But Feng Shui is my first passion. And so I studied for the first 3 years Feng Shui with Kevin. And then he decided to go in a different direction. So he introduced me to Master Joseph Yu. And Master Yu was coming to Melbourne in 1998. And that was the first year that he started the Feng Shui Research Centre. He lives in Toronto in Canada, but he's originally, he grew up in Hong Kong. He was born in China. But when he came to Melbourne, I was living in the countryside at that time, and I decided that I would just, because I thought I knew everything about Feng Shui. I'd been studying for 50 years. That was, of course, 18 years ago. And
learned a little bit more since then, huh?
Oh, I think so. I think so. So he had a 4-day course, and I went along to the last 2 days of the course. And the first day when I sat down in the classroom, he said a couple of things, and he was talking about one of the formulas that we use in Feng Shui. And he made it sound so simple and so easy to understand. And I thought, my struggle is over, because I can finally work out some of the more finer concepts of Feng Shui that I was sort of struggling to understand up until that time. And little did I know that I was still struggling until I found out what was the easier way to do it. So Master Yu, he was talking about this formula, and then I learned more about him and realized that he was actually a mathematics professor, a teacher of mathematics, and he wrote mathematics textbooks when he was working in Hong Kong at the University of Hong Kong. And so I like that approach, because unlike a lot of people I know, I actually enjoyed mathematics in school.
Me too. I love numbers.
Yeah,
I love numbers. I was a statistician. It was one of my minors in college, and my friends thought I was nuts. And I would sit at home, and I remember on a Friday night watching Jane Mathematics, Vedic Mathematics shortcut, and they're like, "What are you doing? You're like in your 40s." And I go, "Isn't this great? Do you want to come watch this?" And they're like, "No." See, I think you either like numbers a lot or not so much. So I probably would really like Master Joseph Yu than his trainings.
Oh, yes, well, definitely. I agree, Brenni. In fact, I studied statistics in school as well, so I know what you mean. And, I think you have to have a love and a passion for these things, And when I learned about Feng Shui, in particular, like Flying Stars Feng Shui, and other formulas, I realized that they're actually based on mathematical principles. And they use algorithms to calculate certain things about a house, and using these sorts of formulas. So, for instance, even yin and yang is a type of formula, just on its own. But instead of saying, 1 and 0, we say yin and yang. But it's actually a type of formula that we use. So the Chinese are very interesting, the way that they put together their metaphysical knowledge, because instead of using numbers for everything, which can get very confusing, they use names as well. Like we have the names of the 12 animals, the rat, the dog, the pig, etc. These 12 animals actually form formulas in Feng Shui as well. And in Chinese astrology, of course, too. So rather than saying just numbers 1 to 12, they use these 12 animals to describe different type of qi and how that qi affects a person or a house, for that matter. So when I learned that Master Yu was a mathematics professor, of course I was very keen to continue studying with him. So in 1998 I did the first course, and then I invited him to come back. So he came back to Australia in 2000, and then 2001, and then I think 2003 or 4 he came back again. I brought him back to Australia 3 times. And then I've also travelled to Toronto a number of times to study different classes with him as well, and also his online courses. So I feel, that I'm constantly a student of Feng Shui, because every year I'm picking up a new subject and studying that as well. So you may have heard it.
Don't you think it's a lifelong thing that once you get bit by this Feng Shui bug, I mean, it just takes over, like it's just part of me. I can't even imagine a world without Feng Shui in it, because I love to study. I love numbers. As soon as you start talking numbers, I'm like, the golden mean ratio, Fibonacci sequencing. It's like I get all excited because I love all of it. I'm a dowser. It comes from my German background. My relatives, actually, I was the one who would always witch for water as a child. So I'm getting excited as you're talking about these things, because I think it's wonderful the tools we're given in Feng Shui, and then the complements that you just brought up about them, like the biobiology and electromagnetic fields and geomancy. There's many things that branch off of it, like we talked about clearing clutter and all that was not in what is considered Feng Shui 6,000 or 4,000 years ago. But, of course, they didn't have all this electronic grids on the earth that has changed everything also. So did you get bit by the Feng Shui bug, Jodi? Is that what happened to you?
Yeah. Well, in the old days in China, you could just walk into a house and walk into the middle of the house or the courtyard with your compass and take a compass reading. But even these days, we can't take a good compass reading inside the house because of all the electromagnetic fields. And because we build with steel now instead of wood or concrete or wood or mud or earth. So things change, and we have to adapt to those changes. Which is really what Feng Shui is all about, because Feng Shui originates from the I Ching, which is the book of changes.
Right, so because everything is always changing. That's fact. Everything is in movement. The seasons, everything is always changing. So are you ready to tell them a little bit maybe more about the Cosmic Trinity? This may be something new that they haven't heard a lot about. Would you like to discuss that a little bit more?
Yes, sure, of course. Because the topic of this series is about clutter and making space, I thought that talking about the Cosmic Trinity is a way to help us focus on certain aspects of our life and to be able to remove or eliminate the extraneous things, the things that we don't need in our lives, so we can help concentrate on the things that we do need to do in our lives in order to have a lucky life. So the Cosmic Trinity is about living with a lucky life and understanding how we can be lucky in our lives through the different types of luck. So the Cosmic Trinity, which in Chinese is called San Chai, San is the word for 3, anyway. The Cosmic Trinity is about 3 types of luck: heaven luck, earth luck, and man luck. Now, the reason why I say people luck is because, sometimes I want to be politically correct. So I use the word people luck instead of man luck.
I don't take offense by it, but I'm an independent woman. So, yeah, it's kind of nice when you put that in there. I giggled a little bit because it made me feel good. People luck.
Well, I better clarify that, why I put that in there. We may say that Feng Shui came from a patriarchal society, but in fact there is still parts of China even today where the woman rules the society, and the husband is the subservient one. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Kind of, wouldn't it? You know, I got to throw something in. When you were saying that, what popped in my head is there's very few shows I watch, but I watch this one show, and it's called Naked and Afraid, and it's about a man and a woman that meet each other, and they're completely naked. It's kind of like the Adam and Eve thing. And what they found is it was the women that had to always be coaching and working with the men to keep them motivated so they wouldn't just give up, like if they couldn't get food or water or something. So women are the nurturers, and they really are the ones that kind of crack the whip once in a while, don't they?
Well, it's true. It's true, you know, and even in the trigrams, from the I Ching, you know, the trigram that represents the mother is the Kun trigram, which is earth, and it's about stability, and it's about accumulation, but it's also about it's about someone who can be a nurturer as well, as you say. Yeah. So heaven luck is about our destiny, because when the ancients looked up at the sky, they saw that heaven was always moving. And even today, we look up at the sky and we see that the sky is constantly changing. And so this is what we call heaven. You know, heaven is something that is always changing and always moving, because the sky is always changing and moving. All right, so we look up at the heaven globe and we see that things are changing. And of course, when we're born at a certain time. And so we call that time of our birth, that determines our heaven luck. And there are different ways to analyze a person's heaven luck according to Chinese metaphysics. So there's two main schools of Chinese astrology. One is the 4 pillars of destiny, and the other one is called Ziwei Dao Shu. Now, I'm not an expert in Ziwei Dao Shu by any means, but I do know 4 pillars of destiny. And I understand that, when we're born with a certain type of chi in our chart, and that is the destiny that we should be fulfilling. We should work towards that destiny. And so heaven luck is it's something that's fixed in a way, because when we're born, we can't change the moment of our birth. We can't change the time that we're born. Those things are fixed. But when we look at our astrology chart, we can say, yes, well, we have certain elements, fire, earth, metal, water, wood, and they have certain meanings. Like, for instance, when we're born, you see, a lot of people think that it's our year of birth that's the most important. Well, actually it is, and our year of birth represents one of the 12 animals. But say, we're born for instance, we could be born in the year of the rabbit, but then we're also born in the month of the month of the pig. And we could be born in the day of the tiger. We could be born in the hour of the ox. Right? So everybody actually has 4 animals, and it's how those 4 animals interact with each other, basically, is how the Chinese astrology works. So, we're all familiar with what our animal sign is for the year of birth, but it's actually our day of birth that's the most important part. And it's not even the animal sign for the day of birth, it's the element on our day of birth that is the most important. For instance, I'm a yang earth person. So there's yang earth and yin earth, yang fire, yin metal, yin metal, yang water, yin water, and yang, did I say them all? Fire, earth, metal, water, wood, yang wood, and yin wood, of course. I'm
wood, so I'm like, she forgot wood, people. You all know I'm a 335, or I'm a double ox, double dragon. I'm a 3 wood. Yeah, I'm quite never stubborn.
Yes, and even according to our year of birth, as you say, if you're number 3, then that would be your Kwa number, or in our school we call it a Mingwa. So that would be based on your year of birth. Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's right. So there's that aspect of our astrology as well, in fact, where we can calculate just based on the year of birth what is your number, and then using your number to determine your good directions for sitting, for sleeping, for working, that type of thing. And then that is applied to the house in a system which is called the 8-house school or Bajai school of Feng Shui. So there are different schools of Feng Shui, and that can be confusing. But the thing about heaven luck is, even though it's about our destiny, it's something that is not completely fixed. Because once we understand our chart and we look at our chart and we can see what our elements are, then we know what direction we can go in. And knowing the direction, then it can help us with our choices about what sort of things to do at particular times. Because, we have, like this year is the year of the horse, so it's a wood horse, so we have a lot of wood, a lot of fire this year. So for people where wood and fire is useful in their chart, they can do better this year and maybe take more risks in their business or in their life. So for a person where wood and fire is not useful to them or is offending their chart, then they would better to take less risks in a certain year. So that's how we can use our heaven luck to understand our destiny. So can
I ask you a question that maybe, I love this information, and I believe everyone should have their chart done because it just makes life easier. I constantly, I'm Black Sex certified, but I study everything. But I call Yasha Jampolsky often and say, hey, can I talk to you about this or talk to you about that? And he looks at my chart. I think it's important because in the Western society over here, everybody thinks when they go to a Chinese restaurant and they get the zodiac signs that that's who they are. And it's like, it didn't make sense to me before I studied Feng Shui, that how can everybody that I went to school with in my class all be exactly the same as me? Because we have different personalities. So exactly. I love this aspect that you're bringing up. Now, a question is, when you're talking about destiny, so if people just have this gut feeling that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, even though they may not know what it is, would that maybe be that they're not on the path of their destiny?
Yes, of course. Although I do say one thing, and that is, it really has to do with man luck as well, is that I believe that there are no wrong choices in life. There's always a reason why we go a certain way, and even if it doesn't feel right, then it's to help us understand that, that we're being too stubborn and we can change, or if we feel that we're not doing the right thing, then time to think about doing something else, but we always learn from our experiences. So I believe that there are no wrong decisions. People often come to see me in my shop, I have a little Feng Shui shop, and they come in and talk to me about things like that. And I say, look, there are no wrong decisions in life. It's just, whether we learn from those experiences, and that helps to enrich our lives so much more. So even if we're not following exactly our heaven luck, we can get back on the path again. There's many paths, as we know. There's many paths to go. So that's about our heaven luck. Yeah.
Jodi, we're human, and we may know Feng Shui, but we all make wrong choices. And like you said, to me, it's not a wrong choice. It's like that's a lesson learned for me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why when we're talking about making space for things in our lives, if we feel that we're not on the right path, then going back to that path that we feel most, that we feel that we're on the right path, that is, our goal. That should be our goal, to get back on the right track again. Get off the wrong path, back onto the right path. I mean, it's still, the wrong path will still get us there. It just takes a lot longer.
Yes. Instead of going down the pathway, they decided to go through the woods and over the mountain, across the river, and then got back on the path. That's what she's kind of talking about. You still get on the path, but you learned a lot of lessons along the way that you don't want to climb that mountain and trudge through that water to get there. But you did learn lessons. Okay, so we talked a little bit about heaven luck. Now let's talk a little bit about earth luck, which is about Feng Shui.
Yeah, well, Feng Shui is, of course, both of our passion, and even though we do study different schools of Feng Shui, the important thing is that what we're doing is we're focusing on our environment and seeing and feeling how our environment affects our lives. Now, whatever Feng Shui system that we decide to use, it actually comes back to the very simple ideas about when we walk into a house, how do we feel when we enter that space? How does that place feel to us? And, sometimes that question comes up a lot. People say, oh, my house doesn't feel very good. Well, you see, our house is actually a reflection of ourselves. So if our house doesn't feel good, it means that we're really not feeling good about an aspect of ourselves. And that's how I feel about it. Even if we don't talk about any sort of formulas in Feng Shui or anything else, people often come into my shop and they say, oh, I just feel bad about my house. I feel that it's got some sort of bad energy. Well, sometimes the house does have some bad energy. Definitely we can use Feng Shui to calculate that. But then again, the people who are living in that house have chosen that particular house, and while they're living in there, certain things are going to happen in their lives. Now, Feng Shui can help us to determine what those certain things are. And that's where it's sort of a bit like divination in a way, because when we look at Feng Shui, we can say, well, this house is going to bring that life aspect to that person. So we can understand that, and as Feng Shui masters, we can make predictions about that, but we can never be 100% sure because the person has choice about how they're going to live their life. And they may end up saying, look, this place really doesn't feel bad for me, I think I'm going to move out. Or they may stubbornly stay in that house and continue on with that behavior that they have since they've been living there. Because a house is part of our body. And when we move into, first of all, we look at a house and we say we like that house, and so we buy that house or we rent that house and we move in there. Right? So already we have some sort of connection with that house because we just like it. Right? Somebody else might not like it, but we do. Right? So therefore we have a connection with that place, and it becomes an extension of our personality. Right? So, and then while we're living in that house, certain things can happen to us, and how we feel about the house is also a reflection of how we feel about ourselves as well. So, for instance, I mean, in this series, you're talking a lot about clutter. Well, if people live in a house that's full of a lot of stuff, a lot of clutter, it's because there's some aspect of themselves that they feel that they need to protect themselves, or they're holding on to things from the past, or I'm sure a lot of the other speakers have covered so many of these aspects already. But Feng Shui can tell us about our earth luck. Because our earth luck is about how being in the right place and having a supportive environment in which to live. And also it's about being there at the right time as well. So space and time come together. And in the school of Feng Shui that I use is the traditional school of Feng Shui. So we look at the time aspect that we're living in a place as well. And in my school of Feng Shui, every 20 years the Feng Shui changes, and we're actually halfway through a 20-year cycle at the moment. So we've got another 10 years, and if you've been living in a house and you've been having a lot of good luck, you've got another 10 years of good luck, and then things could change again. So that's something to be aware of. Yeah.
When you were talking about, your homes, I was in real estate for years, and I can tell you for sure, you are right on the money that people buy emotionally. Like they just walk up and they love that home. or for some reason they walk up and it's like, I don't even want to go in the door. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying that there's physically, when you look at it, anything wrong with that house, but they were not attracted to it at all. So it is emotional, and your home does reflect your life, and that's the one thing I just love about Feng Shui is it tells you where you're at and what's going on so you can change it. You know, it's kind of like Feng Shui doctor, you know. We're like Feng Shui doctors.
Yes, it's true, really. That's quite a neat way of putting it, yeah. Because we analyze the house and we analyze the person and we take their pulse and then we see what we can do to provide a solution. Yeah.
And we look at the home and, you know, like if it's in disrepair, like you said, you know, there's a mystical being in all of this where your body is related to the home. So by, you know, getting a Feng Shui master in there. And I'm glad you brought this up because one of the things that you and I know from being in Feng Shui for quite a while is there are some people that think they can read a book or take a class and they are suddenly, you know, Feng Shui experts. And we know there's many, many levels. And I'm saying that I highly suggest it's great you study Feng Shui, but always get a Feng Shui expert out there, or like, you know, Jodi, she does it online. Many of us do it online, and we can do that with no problems, to go through and really take a look at things for you. And then you already know a little bit, so you're going to be clearing clutter and kind of keeping it, you know, nice and clean, and you're going to understand the 5 elements. I think that's the thing most people understand is they understand the 5 elements and that Feng Shui is about flow. But 15, 18, 20, 25 years of studying Feng Shui and we still are just scratching surfaces.
Yeah, that's true. You know, of course, you know, we have to come to a certain point and say, well, yes, I think I understand my subject now, which I'm sure we both do. But
well,
there are so many levels of understanding and new techniques that we can learn. But if we go back to really, you know, the basic of what it is, it's about how we feel and how our destiny is when living in a certain house. And so it's interesting because, as you say, you know, being in real estate, you know, you see people and it's emotional. It's an emotional decision. I mean, that's really the whole crux of buying a house, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, it comes down to money, but it also comes down to whether they like it. If they don't like the house, even if they can afford it, they probably wouldn't buy. You know, if they really hate the house, you know.
And it's emotional selling too, because they're attached. Why? Because their space reflects their life, and that's the energy that they've created, they've lived in. So it's emotional for them to move. Yes,
you're right.
Okay, so we talked about heaven luck. We talked about earth luck a little bit. Now let's jump into person luck, people luck.
Yes, people luck or man luck, yes, if you like.
Well,
yes,
we could say woman luck.
Yeah. Well, you know, as one of the subjects that I also study is I also study face reading. And I've been studying face reading since 2005, really. And I find it such a fascinating subject because aspects of our heaven luck and aspects of our earth luck are also reflected in our face, too. For instance, I'll give you an example. I remember one time I had in my eyebrow, I had a mole starting to appear, and it was in my right eyebrow. And I asked my master about it, and who I was studying face reading with at the time, and he asked me to go and check my west window, and also he said, what about my sister? What's happening with her? And I thought about this, and of course I didn't have to think long, because my west window in my house, the blind was damaged. And it was one of those, it's a Venetian blind, and, you know, the string had broken, so the blind was half open and half closed. So that was one thing, right? And because the right eyebrow is the western side of the house, and then the left eyebrow is our eastern side of the house, right? But also the right eyebrow can represent our sisters and our female friends. So, and at the time, I didn't have to think much about my sister, too, because at the time she was having some problems in her marriage. So, straight away, I rang up the blind company, and I got them to come out and fix my blinds. And I rang up my sister, and I said, whatever it is that's going on between you and your husband, please fix it up quickly, because I've got this mole coming up in my eyebrow. And she's like, what? What are you talking about?
Our families kind of get used to us when we're in Feng Shui, don't they? It's like, oh, all right, again.
Family are not the best people to, you know, do case studies on necessarily.
Jodi, I was raised Catholic by a German family, so I don't have to even express when I went into Feng Shui the way they looked at me.
Well, we have something in common because my father's Austrian, and actually he lives in LA 6 months of the year, so he's there at the moment, you know, in summer. So anyway, after I had the blind fixed, and then my sister resolved her difficulties at that time, the mole actually went away, all on its own.
You know, it's just so fun because, you know, I know that all of this is miraculous what we do, but it never ceases to amaze me when I do interviews and I hear stories like this. And I totally know it's real and it happens. I just find face reading so intriguing and interesting. So can I ask you a quick question? So what if your eyebrows, like one is higher than the other? Like sometimes I see people and I'll notice like one eyebrow way higher than the other. Does that mean something?
It can mean, and this is not always, but it can mean that you have a brother or a sister from another marriage. Yeah.
Oh, very
so like
interesting.
A half sister or a half brother. Yeah. Depends on which eyebrow. Yeah.
Well, we might have to just do a face reading summit one of these days because you could cover a lot of information. And I love it. It's one of my passions. I've just actually returned from a lecture tour, and one of the places I went was Israel, and I was teaching face reading in Israel. And then I went to London to speak at the Feng Shui conference in London. Let me tell you, I want to give you praise and credit for she has been all over the world. So the time difference is like, I feel bad. It's like one day I'm calling her and she's like, well, it's like 2 a.m. or something. So I want to really thank you because it's early morning for her and it's evening for us. And I want to thank you because you've really made an effort to get this information to our listeners. And it's so interesting. So I just wanted to throw that in there to let them know that it's not like we just pick a phone up and decide to do a call and have no planning behind it. We really work hard to get this information so that those of you that love Jodi can follow her deeper forever. Okay. It's true. That's why I do it, Jodi, because different personalities, different schools of Feng Shui, different areas of expertise or passions. And so you have people around the world listening, and there's a lot of listeners from New Zealand and Australia that participate in my summit. So, you know, my passion is helping the listeners find the right people to study with, and then, you know, they get bit by the bug too, or they wouldn't be on summits for 3 years listening to Feng Shui experts.
Yes. Well, you know, I mean, just one more aspect about man-luck, really. I mean, I haven't really talked about it much yet, but, you know, as we say, man-luck is about our intentions and our attitude to life, you know. And I must say that some of the traditional Feng Shui people, they tend to say that Feng Shui has nothing to do with our attitude, or the way we live our life, but actually it has a lot to do with it, really. Because when we're talking about the feng shui of a house, we're also talking about the people and how the people live their life when living in a certain house and the choices that we make, you know.
Right.
And we've been talking already about choices, and we know that there is no wrong choice, really. But it's really our attitude to life that determines how lucky we can be. Because, you know, even if our heaven luck is not so great, you know, we look at our chart and say, oh, your chart makes your life difficult. You know, well, if a person has a difficult life, if they go through their life feeling so depressed all the time because their life is difficult, then they're actually just going to make their life even harder, right? But if knowing that they have a difficult chart, then they feel more philosophical about it, and they, you know, they can go and sort of do some more things to help other people, or because during that you also get the idea that, you know, you're not so bad off after all. You know, there's always people who are better off and worse off than ourselves, you know. So our man luck, our attitude to life has so much importance in our life because, you know, how we approach everything that we do, just waking up in the morning and having a happy day, that determines whether we're going to have a lucky day or not.
I totally agree with that. I'm a person who, you know, wakes up happy, but my sister's a person who don't talk to her for really 2 hours. Total different energy, and my mom said it's always been that way. I'd wake up with a smile, and she would just, like, kind of mope around the house. I've always been happy and excited about life. I'm not saying I haven't had challenges. My chart wasn't the easiest, and I wasn't the sharpest, made the best choices when I was younger, very trusting and just kind of, woohoo, okay, yeah. But your attitude in life, like, think about being around somebody who's always kind of just sees the glass half empty. I don't want to be around people like that. Their energy can be draining. But then you get around somebody who just smiles and is happy. That little bit of change can change your attitude. So what do you think is the most important then? Because all three of these, obviously, every one of us have all three of these lucks. They're all important. But what would you say is the most important of the three lucks?
Well, that's tricky. I think that changes from person to person. But actually, you know, I mean, heaven luck we can't change, but our attitude towards it we can. Earth luck we can change because if we discover, and when we've had a Feng Shui consultation, that our house really doesn't have such great energy, we can always move. We can move to another house. So Earth luck is very changeable, you know, and that's why Feng Shui is so interesting because we can just move to another house, and if we make sure that we get that house checked before we move into it, you know, then we can say, you know, our destiny or our luck can improve according to our Feng Shui. But
you know, I think that's a good point you bring up there is a lot of people buy a house and then they call in a Feng Shui expert. And what you just said is a point I think I would like the listeners to hear is before they buy a house, contact a Feng Shui expert. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit? Like, how can you guide them? Is it by their chart? Is it by the shape of the house? How can you guide a person before they even buy a house?
Oh, well, I mean, if I want to check a house out, like yesterday I was at a warehouse. A client is wanting to buy a new warehouse. So we go to check the warehouse before he buys, you know, because, you know, his business, everything, especially in a business, it's all dependent upon the location, even if it is a warehouse, not a retail space. You know, if the place where we're living or working in has good chi, then we can be luckier. So you know, and sometimes if our heaven luck, you know, if it's a bit rocky for us at the time, we may make a mistake and choose a place that is going to bring us more difficulties. Now, that may not really be a mistake in the long term because we learn from those difficulties, but it makes it a bit harder for us. But if we have someone who knows Feng Shui to help us to choose a house in which to live, then we can, you know, make that burden, that earth luck part of it, a little bit easier for our lives in general. So I think that I would say, Feng Shui is, well, Feng Shui could be the most important because it's something that we can change quite easily. I think even, because people don't like change, and they might find it hard to change themselves, but they find it easier to change their house. Right? So, because man luck is about our intentions and our attitude to life, we're often very rigid about our own thought processes. But we're more flexible about changing our living environment. Moving the furniture around, changing the house, painting a wall, moving to a new house, that sort of thing. So I suppose out of the three types of luck, then the earth luck is the easiest one to fix, in a way, because people don't like to change themselves. I remember years ago my husband and I offered a workshop on on changing yourself to change your life, right? And we got a very limited response from that, and then we realized that people don't want to change themselves. They're afraid of change. But instead of changing ourselves, if we change our house, then that will affect every other aspect of our life as well.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is when you're saying this, I see that people, they go to live events and they get in that energy and they're all excited and they're all happy and they're motivated, and then they go home and what happens? They slide right back into that energy.
That's true. So they should go home and rearrange their house, and then to reflect their new state of mind.
Right.
Yeah.
And call a Feng Shui expert to help you do it.
Yes, why not?
So, you talked about. I'm interested. I get little drop-ins, of course, when I do these. So you're helping this guy. Is it better for him? Let's say somebody had 3 houses that they were looking at to buy. So is that something that you do, Jodi, where you could look at all 3 houses and tell them the one that would be best for the family? I'm just trying to give them an idea of how a Feng Shui master could help them buy a house.
Yes, well, if somebody had that situation, then I would need certain information. Like I need to know, usually I can just get the address and have a look in Google Earth, but I need to know the orientation of the house, and I need to know when it was built. Because, as I was saying, every 20 years the Feng Shui changes. So a house is built within a certain period of time, and then sometimes it may have had a major renovation, and that then sort of rebirths the house into a new age. So at the moment we're in period 8, which is between 2004 and 2024. But a lot of houses that we're still living in are period 7, between 1984 and 2004. So I need to know, when the house was built and which direction the house is facing, and then look at a floor plan of the house and apply the template to that, apply the barbwire to that, and have a look at the different directions and what type of chi is coming into the house, and also where a person is sleeping. So, when I'm looking at houses, the first thing I'm looking at is which direction is the house facing and what's the chi there, what is coming in through the front door, because what comes in through the front door will determine how a person can make money when they're living in the house. And then when we're sleeping, looking at the wall where the bed is placed, because that will determine how well a person can sleep, how healthy they can be, and whether they're going to have good health and experience good health when living in the house, and how their personality can be affected by the house that they're living in. Yeah. So then I would look at all 3 places and then determine from that all that information. So it sounds simple, but it can take a few hours to work that out. But I think it's worthwhile.
That's kind of what I wanted you to explain it a little bit so they can see there's many moving parts to it. It's not something like, oh, yeah, that house looks nice, good for you. I like that you use Google Earth because you can see the property, you can see the roads coming in, you can see if there's power lines, you can see, all the exterior impact on the house, and then you get this information from them. and they can snap a couple pictures, or now we have iPhones and they have, you can just zip through a little video. So that's what's great about you can help people around the world.
Yes, that's right, exactly.
And you do that. You help people. That's when, I read her little bio and said that she does consultations either locally or internationally, and that's how she does it. But there's a lot of layers to what she does. So are there any last words or information you want to make sure that our listeners get today before we discuss the special offer and the thank you gift that you did put together just for this tribe?
Well, I think that, people read a lot of different Feng Shui books and then get different opinions about things. And I think it goes back to how we feel ourselves. Like, we may read in a book, it's bad Feng Shui to do this or bad Feng Shui to do that. And then people come to me and they say, I heard it was bad Feng Shui to do that. And I say, well, are you happy living in that house? They say, yes. I say, do you feel comfortable there? Have you had good luck when you've been living in the house? And they say, yes, everything's fine. I say, well, then don't worry about what you've read, because actually how you feel is the most important thing. So
that's
without
true,
actually... Yeah. It's so true. So, even without seeing a person's house, you can sort of see how we feel about where we're living. That's the most important thing.
Jodi, and one of the reasons I do these summits is that all of you have these great special offers to help guide the people, because you can't believe everything you read. We can't control the books that go out there, and that somebody, took a class and decided to write a book. You shouldn't just blindly read something and accept it anyway, especially because now of technology and all the information that's out there. So that's why I think it's very important, as you all know, that you do contact a Feng Shui expert, and you have 16 experts, including me, to pick from just on this summit alone. So, Jodi, you put some fun stuff together. Let's talk first about the thank you gift, where all they have to do is put their email address in, and the thank you gift that you put together for the listeners today.
Yes, well, all I have to do is go to my website and to my contact page and give me your name and email address so that I can contact you and say hi, and you will get my Feng Shui fallacies, which is an ebook about things that people say about Feng Shui that aren't necessarily true.
I love that. She can hear me. I'm snickering inside. I'm trying not to laugh out loud, but y'all know me. I'm very casual. Guys, it's really simple. You're going to go to, you're going to see Jodi's profile picture and her little bio on the right, and then there's a button that says thank you gift. You just click on that. It's going to direct you right to her website where you can put the information in, so you don't have to be taking notes and typing things out. Is it .com, .au? So just simply click on thank you gift. It'll redirect you to her page where her thank you gift, the ebook is. Put your email address in, and bam, you will have access to it. Now, Jodi, let's talk about the special offer, because I know you're passionate about what's in this special offer.
I certainly am, and the first part of my offer is a live online webinar with me, and it's called The Fickle Finger of Fate in Feng Shui.
Say that fast, people. Let's hear you say it fast. I love that.
So it's an introduction to the principles of traditional Feng Shui, pointed out by me, and because I'm using the fickle finger, and we will go through what Feng Shui is all about and what a traditional Feng Shui consultation involves, but not only that, but what Feng Shui really is all about. So it's a 1.5 hour webinar online, and that will be a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's not, I don't like to be too serious, and I don't like to be too technical, because, that's my job. My job is to be technical. Your job is to understand that Earth luck is so important in our lives. Then the second part of my offer is a face reading report. Now, my face reading, it's not your whole face, but you will send through a photo of yourself to me, and I will write you a one-page report discussing your most prominent facial feature and what it means from a Chinese face reading perspective. So it's not every aspect of your face, but I will see, you see, in face reading, we always focus, the first thing we focus on is what is the most prominent feature in your face. It could be your chin, your nose, your eyes, whatever. So that will be taken from your photo, and I'll write you a one-page report about that. And then the third part of my offer is a $50 voucher, discount voucher for my traditional Feng Shui workshop, which is 2 times 3-hour workshop. So it's 2 sessions. The first session is the introduction to Feng Shui, and I give you instructions on what to do. Like, you have to take a compass reading of your house. You have to have a floor plan. We also draw up a site map of our house, showing all the external features. We talk about the 5 elements. We talk about what you see, what you smell, what you hear, how those things affect you in your house. Mm-hmm. And then the second session, you bring your floor plan, and online, that is, so you will send it to me, and we will go through each of the houses, and it's only a small workshop, so there's limited participants for that. We go through those houses, so each workshop is limited participants, and we go through each house, and then I tell you what to do to achieve good Feng Shui according to the flying stars technique. Yeah. So in other words, I tell you what type of chi you have coming through your front door, and where you're sleeping, whether that's good for health. Those are the 2 most important parts of any house, really. And and then we share with each other, case studies from other people who are in the webinar. You see. So that's part of the fun. You get to learn about other people's lives as well, just like I do.
Jodi, I love case studies. I actually wanted to contact a bunch of Feng Shui people and do interviews just on case studies and make a book about it, because I feel that people really learn through stories. At least in Feng Shui, they seem to really grasp when we give examples. Like, you hear us on these interviews giving you examples of our clients. So I really love that. You put together one heck of a package. I'm going to tell you, people, to be able to have access to her, 2 things, Feng Shui and the face reading, that's incredible. And you're making sure that they understand the information. It's not like, here, go watch a webinar and you're off on your own. Good luck. Because you're passionate about what you do, and I know that for sure, because you live Feng Shui. I mean, that's all you do. She's not off being, a dental hygienist by day and a Feng Shui master at night. This is what she does nonstop, all the time, lives it. It's just in her DNA. It's who she is now. So that's a very powerful package. So thank you very much for putting that together. And once again, guys, we make it simple for you. All you're going to do is click on that special offer button. It's a bright yellow button, and it says special offer right next to the picture of Jodi, and that will take you to the page where you can check out and invest in yourself, and then you'll be on your journey with Jodi. Any words you'd like to leave our listeners with today? And I do really want to thank you, because you've been very busy flying around the world. And to take part in the summit was really kind of you. I love Aussies. I love New Zealanders. It's really fun to have that have a connection in that part of the world. And I would just absolutely be thrilled if all of the Western people I know go out there and, check her out. You can just even Google her name and see tons of things come up, because that's what I do when I interview experts. I Google them, and I want to see. That's how I found those crystals at your little shop you had. I saw it say crystals. I'm like, whoop.
Thanks, Brenni. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with today? We try to keep it to an hour. It looks like we're doing really good here right now because I know your time is valuable, and I do thank you guys very much because you're very active in sending me emails, messages, posted on the Facebook group. We want to make sure you understand the information, so that's awesome, and we will always respond to you. Jodi, thank you so much.
Yes, I wanted to say, firstly I want to say thank you, Brenni, for the opportunity and also for taking time to put these summits together because I can imagine there's a lot of work. I mean, I've run a lot of conferences over the years, Feng Shui conferences, and I know how much work that is, and I know that this has been a lot of work, and I might not have been the easiest person to get in contact with over the last few weeks. So I appreciate what you've done. Thank you, Brenni. And I wanted to say, one last thing about face reading I wanted to say, and this relates to our heaven, earth, and man luck. People say, what can I do to improve my luck? If we feel lucky in our lives, it will show in our face. Right? Mm-hmm. If we feel like we wake up in the morning and we're on the right side of the bed, we get out of the right side of the bed, this will show in our face. We'll be brighter, our face is more beautiful, we have less wrinkles on our face. So if we lead a lucky life, generally it will show in our face and in every aspect of our lives.
Well, I agree with that because how many times have you seen someone and they don't even realize, like when you walk them through a meditation, like when I have 5 groups, that when you start talking about relax your forehead, relax your eyebrows, relax your cheek, and you feel those muscles relaxing, and they're like, I have never done that before, and they've walked around scowling and then wondering why they have these deep crevices in their face. So, I love face reading. You can already tell that when you're writing a book, when you come into America and then, doing a book signing for everybody. Is that in your future
actually,
at all?
I'm in the middle of writing a series of Feng Shui books, but I'm actually planning to come to LA next year, and I was thinking about teaching my face reading course when I'm in LA. So that will be, middle of next year probably.
Cool. Well, you make sure to get in contact with me, and I'll make sure everybody knows you're coming and where to contact you at, and that they can show up in LA and learn from a master.
Thank you, Brenni.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, this is some powerful stuff, and we're here to raise the vibration of the planet. So go take some action. Do one thing today to make your life feel better. Thanks, Jodi. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.